All right, here we go.
We're live again.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Daddum. Dum dum dum.
That can't be our. Is our tag?
We need something better.
I think we need something better.
Something way better
That's
than
okay.
that. I'm terrible at
It was an
openings.
attempt. I'll definitely make something. We'll make something up.
Yeah, make something, and then when I well, it'll be easy to I can put the episodes back into Audacity, and then just like once we get something like recorded,
Yep.
then it'd be easy to just put it in there, and then
That sounds like a plan.
yeah,
Sounds like we know what we're doing, which we don't.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
To an outsider, maybe, but
I mean, we look legit.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
that's all that matters.
We've got microphones and lights
Yeah.
and blue lighting now. We got mood lighting.
So good.
And look, our logo's on the TV.
It's amazing. So cute. Such a look at this.
There's no Mickey Mouse shit
No, it's
going
amazing.
on over here.
Look at that. Look at that logo. There you go.
Yeah. Did you get it in yours?
Oh yeah, we're good.
Oh, dude. A back-to-backer today.
Yeah. I love back to back.
Yeah, me too. Because I feel like we're in the rhythm right now.
Yeah.
And
We're vibing.
we just did like a kind of more of an emotional episode with
Yeah.
like about the kids and stuff like that, which I think is good because that's what this is all about.
It
but,
is. Hitting people in the fields.
Hidden people in the fields, especially us and our one listener in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, John, we appreciate you. John from Jersey.
Could you imagine if that actually was
Jersey John.
a thing? That would be so funny.
Like Jersey John?
Yeah. It just
Matt,
was.
if we put this out there and some guy from New Jersey is like, hey, my name's John and I listen to your shit,
Thanks for the call out.
I'm going to be like,
Well,
John, we need you on the show.
yeah.
We'll
fly you out.
Fly you out.
Yeah, we'll fly you out. Whatever the cost.
Can
of
you
flight is.
imagine?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just some random dude from New Jersey. I feel like he'd be like a Guido from the Jersey Shore or something like that.
Is that even a thing? Is that a thing
with-
still?
The Jersey Shore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like, did you ever watch it?
Yes.
Oh my God.
No.
How much of it?
Like,
No.
like a lot
Like,
of it.
wait, yes.
I
wait.
actually
No.
think I watched all
Do
of
I
it.
want to admit this?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I did watch all of
I
it.
watched all of
Yeah.
it as well.
I just didn't know it was a thing still. Like,
No, dude,
yeah.
you have to get back into it because
Oh,
it's,
there's a continuation?
yeah.
Oh,
Because like, so you probably watched all of the like Jersey Shore up to like when they like finished their very
Yeah,
first.
the original. Yeah.
So now there's a whole new series
Oh my God.
called Family something or other. And it's like them as like adults, like
no.
with kids and shit.
Oh, no.
And they're like out there still doing all their crazy Guido shit
amazing.
and like partying, but they do it all like, cause now they've got tons of money.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So now they're all just like, and like Pauly D is just like a massive DJ and he lives in Vegas and there's still a whole bunch of drama with like Ronnie and like different like baby mamas
Oh
and
my
shit. And
gosh.
dude, it is like, I honestly think it's better now than it was like back when it was like the original Jersey Shore.
That's crazy.
Because they're all the same idiots just
Yeah.
grown up
Yeah.
and still acting like idiots with they're taking care of children and shit. It's hilarious.
That's crazy.
But they're awesome. Like
I must be under a rock because I didn't know.
Dude, nobody knows about this,
Yeah,
man.
okay.
Fuck, I'm like the only person.
You're the
who know-
only
I'm
viewer?
the only viewer.
Nice.
I am their Jersey John.
That's hilarious. That's so funny.
Yeah. Edmonton Rob is like Jersey John for like I'm like their only watch, only viewer.
That show ended when I was in high school.
Right?
Yeah.
I
I would have
know.
been in grade 12 and I think I would have like
Did you
finished.
watch it when you were in high school?
Yes.
That makes me feel old as fuck. Okay.
Yeah,
Because-
no, I did. Like, I actually like was following it for some reason. I don't even know why.
Oh, dude, I think I started watching that show in my 30s.
but- wow. That's funny.
And I was like, maybe it was my late 20s. I don't know. It was like, it was somewhere in that era, right? I was
man.
like, I was already like married and had a kid and stuff like that. And I'm just like, what is this shit?
Yeah.
And I started watching it and I'm like, this is the best. It was like my own little like guilty pleasure, right? It's like when adults like,
That is the best way to describe it is a guilty pleasure.
it is.
Absolutely.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you're ashamed to watch it. What's that analogy? I'm trying to remember now. It's like, it's like oh yeah, that's what, actually I don't want to use that analogy because it's really bad.
That's fair.
Do you remember when like people would talk about, oh man, no, I don't want to say it.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
I think I know where you're going with it. So
It's like a moped.
yes,
It's
I know.
fun to ride.
Yes, I know
but
exactly.
not in front of your
Yes,
friends.
Yes, I know
right?
exactly where you're going with this.
So
On that note,
on that note. So, okay. Anyway, we're going to switch gears now. We're
hard stop.
Yeah, hard stop. We're
Hit
going
the
to
brick
jump
wall.
off of Jersey Shore. How we spent 4 minutes on Jersey Shore, I will never know.
No.
But hey, here we are.
Yeah. How anybody even spends a minute on it?
I don't know, but I'm so glad that like we have that in common.
We do.
And then we just realized that on the podcast that we both were Jersey Shore guys.
Yeah, that wasn't scripted. That was legit.
Not at all. Not at all. I had no idea that there was another like shoreite out there. I don't know what the fuck that's what you call them or not.
I refuse to be called that.
I don't want to be called that either. That's a stupid name. No, just forget I said that. Okay. But here's what I actually want to talk about today.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about your accident.
Okay.
We preluded to this the other, like not the last one, but
couple
the one
episodes
before that.
Yeah.
We said we were going to talk about this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put the brakes on that because you've done a couple of podcast episodes where you've talked about this, which I have had listened to, but I wanted to re-listen to them, to you telling your story, because I wanted to get a little bit more insight on it, and I had some like questions that I wanted to ask you.
Nice.
And that kind of thing. So
I appreciate that. That's super cool.
Yeah. No, I mean dude, this is a big part of your journey and your story.
Yeah.
And I think and it's also like really, it really kind of, is a big part of your like book, right? Which
Yes.
I want to like help you promote, and I'm like in support of, and that kind of thing. So I think this is a good place to start, right? Where I think we should talk about this. And also I think your story is like super inspiring.
Thank you, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think maybe the best place to start would be, why don't you just like tell your story, and let's just kind of go from there.
Absolutely. When I was 20, I was, on November 9th, 2013. So that would have been 10 years ago this year. I was out in the mountains with a couple friends, opening day in Nikiska. And we were going down one of the runs, and I was with two of my buddies, and they went right. I was snowboarding and I went left, and there was a concealed drop off there, and I went flying through the air and landed. And when I landed, I couldn't feel my legs anymore. I was in tremendous pain when I hit, and then nothing at all. And I was like, this is interesting. I've bailed before, but I've never had this sort of happenstance. So anyway, one of my buddies stayed with me, and the other guy skied down to the base and got ski patrol, and they came up, put me in a stretcher and got me down the mountain somehow. And when we were at base camp, they called Stars Air ambulance to airlift me off the mountain. And throughout this process, I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that something was fucked up, and that I could not feel my legs. So anyway, they airlifted me off the mountain, got me to the Calgary Foothills Hospital. And after what seemed like an eternity, they told me that I had broken my spine in 5 places, T12 being the significant burst fracture. So like a vertebra is supposed to be like this, and it was like this. And essentially like my whole body weight came down on it and just went. So I broke 2 above and 2 below, but those like they weren't significant at all. It was that one that went like that. And they told me I was a paraplegic, that I was essentially, nobody knew at that moment what.
Did they actually use that terminology? Did
yes.
They say you are officially a paraplegic?
Yeah, you are essentially what they call it is an incomplete paraplegic, because what they do is they do CT scans to see how your spinal cord is intact or not. and I had like a big bruise, and you could see like the spinal cord being compressed. So I didn't sever the spinal cord. I made this bruise in it that like essentially shut off the communications.
Okay.
So yeah, after that, they put me into surgery the next morning to stabilize the break, kind of bring it back from here to here. And they did 5 screws on each side, and then these metal bars that actually help to like alleviate the stress on it, so that it would heal properly. And then from there, it was essentially like, we don't know what's going to happen. You're in a wheelchair now, and well, we'll see what happens. So at the age of 20, I was officially a paraplegic.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit.
And prior to that injury, I was like way into fitness. Like I had just stopped.
Right.
I had stopped playing hockey. So I needed like an outlet for my energy, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to do the gym thing.
Why'd you stop playing hockey?
I was a goalie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I played up until my second year of junior B, and I just kind of realized like I wasn't going anywhere with it. Like I knew that I wasn't going to kind of really do anything with it. It wasn't, it just wasn't in the cards. And I played hockey to like, kind of like, I played it for all the wrong reasons. I played it to like compete, to like be better. And I was playing with like a bunch of guys that just wanted to like drink and play hockey and, you know, goof around. And I didn't really, I don't know, it just didn't resonate with me. So I kind of I said, okay, I'm done. And I have not touched the ice since.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So
that was like pre your 20s.
Yeah. So I would have been 19, and I have not touched the ice since I was 19.
Never had any desire to play it again?
Nope.
I guess, I mean, obviously your injury would probably prevent you from playing.
Yes.
Even if you wanted to.
Yes. But I mean, I could do sledge. I could do something else. But I don't know. I just never really, I think it was a chapter that was just.
You just closed it off?
Shut. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so I went hard into like the gym, and I was like just in the gym all the time. And I was like I was like squatting like 400 pounds. I was like 25, 30 pounds heavier than I am today.
Really?
And it was just like,
just shredded.
Yeah. Just like, it was insane. Like it was an obsession, but I think it also led me to recovery because of all of the things that I could, like, I could like feel muscles. I could like direct like my mind to the muscle. They call it the mind muscle connection, essentially. So when I was in the hospital bed and like I started to feel muscles twitching and stuff, I would like direct all of my energy to that. And it was just like a consistent, like as things started to come online, I would just focus on that for like 10, 12 hours a day. And by the end of 2.5 months after going through rehab, through all the hospital procedures, I walked out of the hospital with like an old man walker.
Dude.
Yeah. So it went from being like essentially, we don't know if you're ever going to walk again, to that. I'll back up a little bit. When the night I broke my back, they like were doing, they have to do a central line in you to push the medication. So they do that through like one of your main, I guess it would be your vein or artery,
right? One
of the two. Anyway, and when they were inserting it, they nicked it, and I was like bleeding internally.
Oh yeah, that's right too. I remember hearing.
Yeah,
yeah. You remember you talking about this? This is a pretty significant thing, right?
It's huge, like this, because like they had to like move me back and forth from this hospital bed to like get me into scans like 10 times throughout the night. Yeah. And it was essentially to like make sure that I wasn't like bleeding out internally.
Really?
But every single time they moved me, obviously like there was no stability in my back. It was hell on earth. Like it was just so, I don't remember the pain if I can think about it. Yeah.
So you almost died from the surgery.
Yeah. Like prior to even going into surgery.
Even going in.
Yeah. It was a bit messed up. And when I was on the helicopter, I also tell the story about, because
I wanted to talk about that.
We'll talk about that after.
They pumped you up with some pretty drugs,
messed up stuff. Yeah. Like when you have an injury like this, you don't really get relief from like the classical morphines and stuff. No. There's something called nerve pain, and essentially it's like your brain trying to connect to the the limb to essentially keep those electronic connections going. It's all electricity, right?
Yeah.
And the pain of like your brain searching for those connections is ridiculous. It's I can't even describe it. So in the helicopter, the only thing that worked in that, well, I'll back up. The only thing that they generally give people in helicopters after traumatic injuries is like the big stuff. Like they'll give you essentially fentanyl, and they'll give you, in the case of traumatic injury, they give you something called ketamine.
I mean, I know those drugs from like actual like recreational drug use and people like doing them and dying.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't really like even have a concept of like what, like how like those drugs work.
Yeah. Well, fentanyl is, they gave it to Bex when she was giving birth. It's actually what they use for the,
they use it for childbirth. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it is what they use that as, the word's escaping me, but you know what I'm talking about for childbirth.
Yeah. Induce. No, not inducement. I know what you're talking about. The epidural.
You got it. That's the one. That's the word.
Okay.
But ketamine is like it's a dissociative. So it's essentially like what it does is it takes you out of the experience and puts you into a place where you're like essentially
in a coma.
Oh, no, like you're a third party observer to what's going on.
What?
Yeah, like you essentially like I tell the story. I'm on a helicopter flying over Banff to get to Calgary. And in the helicopter, essentially like I'm looking down on myself. And essentially it's like
an out of body experience.
It's a full on out of body experience.
No shit.
You essentially get to like witness your spectacle as like it's a television show.
Dude, what was that like?
Well, I talk about it in my book, and I actually think it was more significant than I thought at the time. I actually believe it was like my first glimpse into like the afterlife. Like I actually think it was my first showing of what actually this is.
Really?
Crazily enough.
What do you mean by that? Like elaborate.
I essentially, like, my thesis on what all of this is like you're a soul. Like you're not actually a body. Mm-hmm. And I think that what that does is it shows you who you are. And you get to essentially be like, in the experience, you're like, everything's going to be okay. Like,
right.
Like to be honest with you, I tell the story and I'm like, I could have died and it wouldn't have mattered because in that moment, you're just like, this is actual truth. Like, this is not like, this is all, this physical existence is all this kind of illusory experience.
Yeah.
And what you actually are is like beyond. And
so what you feel like you were experiencing was your soul was looking at your body.
Exactly. And when people talk about near-death experiences, they talk about like, this is this huge rabbit hole that I've gone down over the past probably 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Because this was an experience that took like a decade for me to integrate.
Sure. Well, how do you fucking unpack an experience like that and like try to make sense of it?
And I've gone down like the theological route. I've gone down like, what are religions saying? What are all these like, and then I've gone down the near-death experience route, and then I've gone down the drugs route. And I've been like, everybody's saying the exact same thing. It's just like, how do you, it's like all the roads lead to Rome. How do you get to Rome?
Right.
And essentially in that experience, I was witnessing exactly the spectacle that people were talking about. And I was like, I didn't know that at the time. Like I was essentially like, I've every single day I've thought about it. It's not been something that's skipped my mind since the experience.
Right.
And yeah, it's been completely integral into my life going forward.
Sure.
But yeah, like that's kind of, does that make sense? What I'm?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, it's unrelatable for me because I like wouldn't even begin to be able to understand how to like describe a feeling like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't mean to say that I'm not like open-minded enough to feel like that's a thing.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's enough accounts out there of people who have like claimed this exact same type of experience that to know that it's like without a doubt, it's true. Like this happens.
Yeah.
Right.
it's essentially like there's a continuation after you die. Like, I don't think that this ends. I actually don't think that there's a brick wall that you hit. I think that you do continue. Yeah. And where you go from there, I think, is up for debate. But I think that there is like this is kind of a spacesuit.
Yeah.
Like, this is like a like the whole concept of Joshua kind of slips away when you like think about it. But yeah, that's in the book. Like, I try to even touch on this, and it's difficult for me to touch on because I don't think language conveys it. I think you have to actually you have to experience it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no way not to. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like, so like from your perspective then, mm-hmm. like what made it feel to you like this was, because you're high as fuck.
Oh, absolutely.
When you're on this helicopter.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So what made you feel like this is a legitimate out of body experience versus just like, I'm just hallucinating.
Hallucinating, yeah.
Like a fucking crazy person.
I think when you get into it, like, I think the brain is capable of producing these things on its own. Like, you actually don't even need drugs to do this. When people talk about meditation, this is actually like what the epitome of meditation is, right. Is the ability to like witness thyself and essentially watch as a third party observer, like, why is Josh doing that? And actually like detaching from the experience and being able to be like, oh, why did you do that? Or like, oh, like, you know what I ask
myself that all the time, but that's just hindsight.
Yeah, you know what I mean though? But like being able to do that in the moment, like kind of being above it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I got into like the use of psychedelics and all of that. It's not that I've like gone down that road hardcore or anything like that, but the understanding is that these are just like tools, and they also just show you like this dartboard to aim for, that you could essentially live every day of your life in that level of like contentment, bliss, understanding, and knowing what everybody is.
Right. What do they call that? There's like a word for that, like the Buddhists use. It's like full, like enlightenment. Is that it? Would that be like it? Like when you're like fully like,
yeah, like I don't want to like say anything about, like I don't want to claim enlightenment or anything like that, but I think that that is like, I think that's like the target.
To be in that like constant state, like all the time, it's like in your like purest form.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I think that is kind of like, I think it's a realization. It's a knowing of thyself. It's a philosophical, like everybody's talking about that, but they're just kind of going about it in different ways.
Yeah.
Right. So when people talk about like religion or whatever, it's like everybody's talking about the same phenomena. They're just talking about it in like ways that apply to them metaphorically.
Right.
So it's like, is anybody wrong? No, I don't think so.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. I mean, what's wrong and right at the end of the day?
Well, I mean, those are constructs kind of thing, right?
Too. You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like at the end of the day, you're right. It's just, you know, it boils down to, it's like, what do you believe? What are the limits of like how far your mind can go?
Yeah.
And
it is all belief too. Because getting back to the recovery, like it was me. If you ask anybody that was by my bedside throughout the process, there was never a doubt in my mind that I was going to recover. There was never like, I tell the story, but like I refused to get the handicap plaque,
right,
because I didn't want to make it a reality.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I shut off that, like that was a possibility.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be a possibility. So I kind of like, it was always going to be that I was going to recover. Whatever that looked like, it was going to be a recovery. And it was always a mindset that I had that there was no alternative, right? It was like, I've burned the boats. There's no going back. You're going to do this. Doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter how long it takes. You're going to do this. And it's all a belief. It's not anything more or less than that. I think it's all of the mind. And in my recovery, I learned that your mind is literally the most powerful thing ever.
Yeah.
There's nothing that compares to it. You could be imprisoned for life, but free in your mind and you would be free, is truly what I believe. And I think that everything starts from the mind, and all external is essentially a manifestation of your mind. And in coming to see that, your life completely alters itself. I went from being somebody that was like negative a lot of the time. I went from being somebody that was like, I don't know, somebody that I didn't actually like. And it took me a long time to start to like myself again and kind of see like what love of yourself is.
So is this pre-accident or post?
No, this is, I think this, like, I hated myself, I think, at one point in my life.
Like pre-accident?
Pre-accident, I think. I think that I was chasing like everything in the world that essentially like tried to validate myself. But I think my accident was essentially like this cutoff point in my life.
Was the accident, do you think, the catalyst, or was that still a factor like after the fact?
I think it was most definitely a catalyst. I think you always know the right direction, but I think that like what the accident did for me was like kind of show you what life could be.
Yeah.
Right? Like it shows you that like you don't have it very bad. You have it pretty good.
Yeah.
It gave me perspective, I think is the phrase I'm looking for.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you go to the hospital and you're in a ward with other people that have had similar injuries to you. And there's not just paraplegia, there's quadriplegia. There's there's much more involved injuries than what I had, right? Yeah. And people that really, I don't believe that nobody will ever do something again, but like they are in that place that like they're never going to get better.
Yeah.
And it's also of the mind. I don't think it's just of the situation that they're in. But it gives you perspective. You're like, oh, you have it good. You have use of your arms. Like even if you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, like you have this, right?
Yep.
So I think that that's what it gave me, was perspective on my situation. And also that like I don't even know. It for me was like it was the catalyst for sure, but it was also like this, like before and after.
Right. So it's almost like pre-accident, post-accident.
Absolutely.
Like life. It's almost like, oh, life begins now.
It's
like a hard switch.
It was a rebirth. It was.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cliche to say, but I honestly do believe that.
I mean, how else do you describe it really? I mean, because it's like one of those things where you went through something that like shifted your mindset on everything.
Absolutely.
Right. So what else? I mean, I get that. I 100% get that, because like where you say that, like you looked back on, like you say that there was a point in your life where you hated yourself. Mm-hmm. See, for me, I don't think I've ever really like had a whole bunch of like self-loathing. Is that the right word for it? Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever really had any self-loathing, but like I look back at like a version of myself that I used to be. It's always hindsight for me. Yeah. For me, it's always, I look back and I'm like, I fucking hate that person. Yeah. Like I hate who I was. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like and then that's just like me like evolving as a human being and just like being like, wow, this is like wow, I was a real selfish piece of shit at one point in my life. Yeah. Right. And and it's like disgusting to me, but I'm also like, you can't like dwell on that shit.
No,
right?
absolutely.
And, like, think about that, because that's just the journey of life. And
you have to live it, right?
Live it and learn it, and just get better and evolve as a person. Yeah.
No, for me, it was just like, I looked at myself in the mirror, like even 6 months ago, and I was like, I do really love myself. Like I really love like my family. I really love like.
It's pretty conceited, Josh.
I know.
Just kidding.
But I also believe that you can't love another person until you love yourself.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty deep. That's pretty true too.
Like I actually do believe that like the love of all else starts from within. And as soon as you are able to see that, you're like, I can value other people
Yeah.
for what they actually are. And to be honest with you, I actually believe other people are me. Like I've actually gone down the road of like, I think that
What does that mean?
I think honestly, like when I walk down the street, I make eye contact with some people and I'm like, that's me, just in another body, just living a different life. But that's me. That's myself. And when you start looking at people that way, some very interesting things happen. Some very cool things happen. You walk down the street and people are like, how are you, man? And you're like, I'm really good. And like you walk up to the register at the coffee shop and you actually ask purposely, how are you? How are you doing? Me.
That's hardcore, man.
Dude,
That is
my life entirely
really
changed when I started looking at it like that. Cause it's entirely like,
What is it? Like, what is it about the like feeling? Like, what gives you that feeling that you're like, that's me in that other body?
I don't know. I think it's just that, it's a worldview. Like it is it's a shift because you don't look at the separation, right? You don't look at like the differences. You look at the similarities. You look at like how you can relate to people. You look at, it's the golden rule in the Bible: treat others how you would wish to be treated.
Right.
And as soon as you do that, you start seeing that all of these people are just me, just in a different like circumstance.
Yeah.
And in another life, that may be my circumstance or something like that. I don't know. It completely, when I say I love myself, it's not that I love myself, it's that I love all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, from there, life is completely this absolutely beautiful, blissful, like, it's something else, man.
Yeah.
It is something else.
Yeah. And man, that's like, it's such a deep thought to think about. Like, I'm just trying to think of a way to like boil this down the way that I'm like picturing it in my head.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you know that? Okay. So you know that game? Here's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good analogy. I don't fucking know. You tell me if it's
all
a good
analogies are good analogies.
Yeah. You tell me if you think this is relatable or not. You know that game where you have a circle of people and you like one person says something to the next person and then they whisper it in each other's ears all the way around the circle.
Yeah. Telephone, I think it's called, right?
And by the time it gets back, it's like something completely different.
Yeah.
So like the way I'm looking at like what you just told me as an analogy is like the initial like sentence that comes out, that's people, that's everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's story gets changed throughout. Like each person is a point in their life as they go through their life.
Yeah.
And it gets changed as they go through these experiences. And for everybody, that journey is different. So who they become at the point when it comes back to that person is completely different than where it started. Right. And that could be also completely different than you, than me, than anybody else.
But all
the different things that happen. But in essence, we
all
all
the same.
started out as this one same thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's just our journey that has dictated what we like, how we have like become and the type of character that we have and the type of people that we essentially are. And those are the faces that we put on right now.
For sure.
Right? Like those are the masks that we're wearing. These are
Dude.
like we're halfway through our circle right now.
Yeah.
Right. And this weird sentence that we don't know. Right. But like for you, someone who's had like some experiences like you've had and like epiphanies and that kind of thing, you're one of the few people that can actually see what that first sentence looked like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you not only can see your own first sentence, but you can see other people's first sentences as well, right? So to me, that's like a very deep, profound thing to be able to do. I don't even know that I would be able to, but I get it. Like I can understand the concept of what you're trying to say.
I think you said it best. Like, I think everybody's wearing a mask. And I think a lot of people are wearing half a dozen or dozens of masks.
Oh, yeah.
And what happens is that most people are incapable of removing even one of those dozen masks.
Or don't know how. Yeah, don't know how or can't or won't.
Yep. And I think that that's a huge topic. That can get we could do 10 podcasts on that.
Sure.
But I think that the idea is what happened to me is all of the masks got just blown off of me. I stopped being who other people wanted me to be. I stopped living a life that I thought others wanted to see for me. I became who I actually was. I lost all care in the world for what people thought of me. Because when you're in a wheelchair or you're in a situation where I'll be blatant, right? You have to get a catheter in to urinate. You have people poking tubes down your, you're in a situation where you're essentially completely shameless.
Yeah.
And in that, there's everything is just completely blown away.
Yeah.
Right. And from there, you start to realize I can rebuild these masks and put them on again, or I could just live my life without them.
Sure.
And with my heart on my sleeve, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what happened to me in this experience, is that it wasn't a physical injury so much as it was this mental, complete reprogramming of myself. It was a complete, it was a shift. It was like this and now this, complete different direction shift. And I think exactly what you're saying is that people not only in life go through life wearing those masks, they just keep accumulating them.
Right.
And instead of removing them. And I think a lot of the time, old people are so blatant and so out there and so just honest and to the point.
Yeah.
Is because I think a lot of them are just this doesn't serve me anymore. I don't need this anymore.
I think it's an endurance thing. I think from my perspective, I think it takes a lot of energy to keep all the masks on.
Dude.
Right?
Yeah. And
I have a whole theory about this, that goes around marriage, but that's for another one for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot of energy to put on all these masks to actually pretend to be someone that you're not. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And at some point you just get tired and you're just I don't want to uphold it's like trying to hold a thing like this. Yeah. Your arms are eventually going to get tired and you got to drop it down. Yeah. And then you're just I just don't care anymore. This is me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you got to be unapologetical about, what this is. Right. And I think for you, that's where the don't give a fuck happens. Yeah. Is that, you're just at that point, you're listen, I'm I would much rather not go through the effort of, you know what I mean, holding this up, rather than just being people need to accept me for who I am, right? And honestly, that's the most purest version you could be of yourself. And it's just a matter of there's a lot of people out there that are that, but it's at what point in your life do you discover that
for
switch,
sure.
Right? Because you said there's probably a lot of older people out there where it sucks. You have to go through your whole life and then finally get tired and then be okay, here I am. Right?
Yeah.
And then everybody is what the fuck are you? Where have you been all this time? I was you were somebody else for your whole life.
You were falsely advertising yourself for your whole life. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, I don't know, man. For me, it was just, that's really what the experience was. It was yes, you have this injury, but on top of that, it's you also have this, people ask, it's a bad scenario. It's a hard thing to go through. Would you do it again? And I would honestly 100% unequivocally say I would do it again. And it has led me to
fundamental change like that. Yeah.
It's led me to where I am today.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a daughter. I wouldn't be a dad. I wouldn't be, you know,
You don't think so?
I don't know.
I mean, it's hard to say.
It is hard to say for sure. But I think that I don't know. I wouldn't be, end of the day, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
You'd be on a totally different trajectory. We probably wouldn't be sitting here.
Probably
You
not.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's many things that would be changed probably that led you down this path.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know what? It's crazy to me because, like, now that I talk to you about it, it's like you had this major, like, physical bodily injury thing that happened to you, right? Which is, I feel like, what a lot of people would focus on.
Yeah.
In this story,
It's what
like
everybody
you
sees.
broke your back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That is like no joke. That's a big deal. You broke your back. You were legitimately a paraplegic.
Yeah.
But the part of the story that I feel like is more important to you is less about the physical injury, but more about the transition shift that happened to you mentally through that process.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I mean, that's a good segue because that's kind of like what your book is about, right?
It is. Yes.
So
my book is like trying to touch on that universality of human experience.
Yeah.
And it is a difficult thing to do. I'm not going to lie to you.
Sure. It's not for everyone.
No, it's not. Like, this is like, the book is essentially a philosophical discussion on like what I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that, and who I've become. And I think that, the story is a portion of the book because it kind of gives people context as to where I was, what you experience, what is it like to go through this sort of thing.
Right.
But I believe that everybody goes through a fall. Like, I think that everybody goes through a really garbage, traumatic situation in their life at some point. And I think that what you can do from that scenario is you can go up or you can go down. And I think that you can choose in that moment what direction you're willing to take. Because I think something happens to one person and they go this way and they just essentially check out. That's it. You know, this is how it is. And I'm now, you know, this is what I am. And, I'll never get better. I'll always live my life in pain. Whatever. Right. And then the same situation happens to another person. They're like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to get better in every single way of my life because I know that it is part of the path. I know that it's this obstacle that I have to jump over to progress, to move on in my life. And I think all that is literally a choice. And coming from it from that perspective is, it gives you power again, because I think a lot of people don't understand that they have a choice. I think a lot of people think that, well, this is how it is. It's over for me. Right.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a complete alternative to that, and it's going down the other path.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one of the universal points I try to hit on, is like that rock bottom that I think everybody hits at one point or another. I think if you're living a life, I think it's going to happen, right? It's that hero's journey of life where it's like, you know, here, and then you have to climb out of it if
It's
you
like
so
the
choose.
3 acts of any story. Right?
Absolutely.
It's like,
yeah. And then from there, it's obviously the climb out of it. How do you get better? What do you do? And I kind of, I talk about how I think that if you start in the physical world where you focus on like, what can I do physically to better myself? So, you know, just sleeping better, eating better, whatever, right? That gives you this inkling of like, oh, I can control my life. I can control at least this aspect of my life. And you start to think, what else can I start to have control in? And then inevitably what happens is you look at your mind and you're like, I have control over not my feelings, but how I react to my feelings. I have the ability to experience feelings in their entirety, because I don't think it's healthy to have a feeling and like push it off or like tamp it down or whatever.
Yeah.
It's to feel it entirely, but to know that you're not the feeling, to know that you are the experiencer of the feeling. And from there, you can go forward. Yeah, both of our cameras are. That one's still going though.
That was still going.
That one's still
That's
going.
okay. We can keep going with your thoughts. Sorry, I didn't want to derail you.
No. And then from there, it's your mind is a point of I can control. People for some reason think that they're like not free, but that's not a physical thing. That's a mindset. You can free yourself in your mind, and from there, your entire external experience is also one of freedom. But then I think you progress beyond the mind. I think what happens is you train the body to get out of the way of the mind so that you can work on the mind. But once you realize that you have control over the mind, you can work on the mind to get to the point where you are actually of the spirit. You're of the heart. You live from not the mind, but from the heart. I think the epitome of life is not in one of logic or in one of following like what is best for me or whatever. It's actually in doing things out of complete and utter love for everything. For you look at the world as something that you love, and you do everything as an act of love. And I think that once you get beyond the mind, that's where you go. And I'm working on that now. And I think that the trajectory of the past decade has been one of overcome the body so that you can work on the mind, and that now you can live your life from who you actually are.
Right.
And
that's all led you to this.
That's the book.
Moment, and this is the book.
That's the book.
Okay. So I have one question then, or one quick question. So what would you hope is the purpose of the book? Or like somebody who's reading it, like somebody who doesn't know you or know anything about your story or anything like that, what would you hope that they would get from the book?
To resonate. I think that it's really just a thing that when I talk about my experience, I hope that people see it in their own lives. I think people have this like relative outlook on pain, and they're like, oh, what I've been through does not compare to you, or something along those lines. And I would say the exact opposite. I would say, no, like we are in the exact same situation.
Yeah.
And you can take the exact same lessons that I took from this and use them to essentially realize who you are. That's really what I want from the book, is just to resonate, to find my people, I think too, because I think that what I'm trying to do with it is to find people that are on the path.
Yeah.
And that understand that this isn't all there is. Like there's so much more.
So you're hoping to build a community with this, right?
I would really hope so. I think that if I can get in contact with even 2 people, even one person,
sure,
that reasons like this hit home for me.
Yeah.
It would have been.
Yeah. Well, that's what making a difference is all about, man. It's not like, I mean, obviously you want to try to affect as many people as you can, but if you can touch one person, that's really like,
that's all it's about.
That's the big thing, right?
That's all it's about. Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, dude, that's awesome. That's so fucking cool. Okay, so we're recording this in mid-October.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this, we're not going to be releasing this until probably November-ish, right? Because around now, which I'm talking in the future tense, right, is when you'll be releasing your book. So if you're releasing your book, let's say you're releasing your book tomorrow, and we're releasing this episode, where can people find it?
Yeah.
Do you know that information yet?
I do, yes.
Okay, so tell people, where can they find this? Or tell John from Jersey where
John.
he can find your book. And if anybody's interested and like resonated with what we talked about here on the podcast today, then you're gonna wanna read Josh's book, because I'm interested in it. I definitely want to read it. I'm one of your people. So
you are, absolutely. Yeah.
So definitely like let people know.
Yeah. The book is entitled Mountain, and it's a field guide to summiting life. The book is going to be released on mountainthebook.com. And it's going to be essentially I've mentioned this to you, but it's going to be, it's a living book.
Yeah.
So what that means is that I want people to give me feedback for it. It's going to be released in PDF, EPUB, Mobi format for e-readers and all that.
Yeah.
And if people want a hardcover, that may be a possibility in the future. But I want people to give me their feedback. I want them to tell me, elaborate more on this, or what do you mean here, or this sort of thing. And I want it to be almost a collaborative effort with the people that come in the door to read the book. And from there, you will be credited in the back of the final version, which could be never. I believe that I think that my life is a work in progress, hopefully.
Sure.
But you'll be absolutely added to the special thanks at the end of the book for that. So,
well, I'm looking forward to seeing mine and Jersey John's name at the end of that thing. No, dude, that was so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story on that. I think
appreciate
this
it, man.
was a wicked episode, and we went deep.
We went deep. We did a deep dive for sure. So,
but this is an episode of Daddom that really is more about the dads than anything, or just one dad one dad in particular. But yeah, no, I'm really glad we got this one done.
Thank you, man.
All right, brother.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Peace.